Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. Now, I know you guys have been transfixed on the events of the last 24 hours now, 24 hours, the inauguration and everything that has happened. And what's been very concerning to me, and this has been a refrain throughout the duration of contemporary American politics, and even old way American politics being the politics that predates the 21st century. The theme of unity. The theme of unity has been so paramount to so many campaigns, but it is especially paramount after 4 years of Trumpian populism to Joe Biden. Joe Biden is currently weighing his incoming governance or his upcoming governance against President Trump's former administration. And so Joe Biden set out in his inauguration speech to convince many disaffected Trump voters and to convince other people who may not share his ideological paradigms, such as libertarians and other conservatives who may not have supported the president, but certainly supported some of the things he's did. He is trying to convince them that he is the president that can bring them together and can satisfy them. And he said in his speech, "Hear me out." The media has lauded Joe Biden's speech as the unity address. In fact, the Wall Street Journal, a publication that I typically respect, said that Joe Biden's address was a unity address. And they quite literally, in their opinion pages, defend Biden's handling of national healing. Why? Because they mention that national healing, unity, does not require agreement on one point of view. The Brookings Institute further identifies the themes of Biden's inauguration address as unity and truth. And they mention that Joe Biden said that we come together as one nation. Democracy has prevailed. We have much to prepare, much to restore, much to build, much to heal, and much to gain. But we cannot do it while divided against ourselves. Here's the best part. My whole soul is in this, bringing America together, he said. It is time to end our uncivil war. Now, this may seem nitpicky and overly meticulous, but there is not a single historian who would call the Civil War civil in the sense that people were civil to each other. So I think this rhetorical wordplay here is just downright annoying when you understand the context of certain terms. But let's move on. The problem with Biden's unity here is not necessarily a problem with Biden himself, although there are particular problems with Biden's handling of unity in his speech. The problem with unity is the fact that the idea of political unity is one of the most contrary and dangerous ideas in our current political landscape. Why is that? Very simple. The nature of this reality that we exist in. If you're going to understand politics, you must understand the nature of reality. The metaphysical connects with the ethical in all kind of ways. So if you don't have an objective reality, how in the world can you make the best political decisions with any kind of set metric? You couldn't. The metric would shift and differ depending on the whims of whoever was in charge, because there is no set principles. But principles quite literally give birth and animate our understanding of the world and the structure of the world. The laws of gravity animate our understanding of the world and the structure of the world. The laws of the universe itself, all these kind of things, ecosystems, even the sort of more mundane and more elementary aspects of nature, the water cycle, all of these things happen for a particular reason. There is an objective force. As the Greek philosopher Heraclitus would say, a logos to this universe. And that logos is divided against itself. How do we differentiate light from darkness? Well, we have darkness, therefore we can also understand what not just the absence of darkness, but the presence of something else in the absence of darkness is light. Because light is not merely the absence of darkness. The absence of darkness is just, I don't know what it is. I mean, it's just more odd conceptual thoughts. But the absence of darkness and the presence of something else, light. Because light is directly in relation to darkness. So similarly, you cannot have you cannot have a unified political system, a political consciousness, because many beliefs exist in relation to each other. I would not know what a progressive is if they had nothing to progress from, if conservatism never existed. I would not know what a libertarian is if the idea of human freedom was really never assailed and assaulted by tyrannical impulses of various ideologies. Because guess what? These things exist in correlation with each other. That does not mean that concepts cannot be defined by themselves. They certainly can, but they exist in relation to each other. So, for us to embrace a unity is to commit conceptual death. It is to completely and utterly reject the laws of reality as they stand. It is to completely and utterly maim our ability to discern and engage with these issues in the fullness and the light of the truth, as the great Socrates would say back in ancient Greece. But there's a more pernicious aspect that comes down from the realm of the rational and comes to the realm of the empirical, which are not really all that separate in my opinion, but they are tended to be separate throughout the history of philosophy. There is this pretension amongst the speeches in the Biden inauguration address about how they're going to unify, yet they're going to do things that are clearly subjectively motivated. In Biden's inauguration address, he said, I'm going to unify the country, but I'm also going to preserve and fight for racial justice. How in the world are you going to unify the country when you are literally alienating the beliefs of millions of people who are abhorred by the notion of a racial justice? Not because they are racist, but because they understand that justice is a universal principle, an individual principle that does not need to be hyphenated by mundane, temporal concepts that dilute justice from its fullest truth. But you're going to say that we're going to fight for racial justice, which in the Biden language requires a lot of government policies, a lot of things that are predicated upon critical race theory, that are predicated upon all these false understandings of reality, that are predicated upon all this stuff. That's not unity. You are using rhetorical fluff to compel my sensibilities to like you so that your agenda can be more easily pushed forth. It's a form of psychological conditioning. Let's look at one of the speeches at the inauguration just other than Biden's. Amanda Gorman, who, very bright girl. I'm proud of her for, being the youngest youth poet prize laureate. But she had this same kind of theme in her poem, The Hill We Climb. Let's look at this. I'm going to read some of this for you. So she says, Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Americans in the world, when day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry a sea must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. Okay, look at that. So she's already saying there's this darkness over us, and we are breaking norms, we are breaking notions, we are revitalizing and re-understanding concepts like a justice. We are channeling this sort of complacency, and we're getting rid of it. She's already making several philosophical propositions here, which if you understand the ideology from which Gorman is coming from, the ideology from which Gorman is approaching these issues from, you would understand what she's talking about. She's talking about social justice. She's talking about race consciousness. She's talking about all this stuff. And let me prove that to you as we continue here. And so she says, somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. Look, the idea of America, in her opinion, is not finished. But in my opinion, the idea of America was finished back in 1776, and we're simply trying to preserve and perfect that idea. But she's saying, no, the idea of America is unfinished. The nation is not broken, it's unfinished, which suggests we gotta finish it. How do we finish it? Look at whose inauguration she's speaking at. Guys, you gotta realize what's going on here, my friends. This poem is beautiful, but guess what? It is filled with a bunch of subjective propositions which do not correspond to reality and which are an anathema to human freedom, and yet you will sit here and you will pretend as if because it sounds good that it's a good thing to embrace, but you don't understand what's going on here, my friends. Let's continue. We, the successors of a country in a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president only to find herself reciting to one. So she's saying that her blackness and the history connected to her blackness defined her outlook, her perceptions, her dreams. That's terrifying. Your skin color should not define how you perceive things. Your individuality should. And she says, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose. To compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. All conditions of man? All cultures? America's culture is predicated upon the notion of individual freedom. There are some cultures in this world that do not believe in that idea. How in the world can we compose a union when there are people within the union who oppose the foundational principle of the union? I believe in cultural pluralism. I absolutely love I believe in having all kinds of people come in. I believe in having immigrants come in and enrich the country. I believe in that 100%. But do I believe in forsaking the foundational American values of individual rights for the sake of accepting other cultures that may not be in coherence with our understanding of individual rights? No. And that is not a unifying proposal from Miss Gorman. This is quite clearly a subjective proposal from Miss Gorman. And yet, we let the idea of unity influence what we think. I'm not going to read this entire poem because the video would be too long. I'm not going to do that. But Reverend Silvester Beaman, he had this benediction here, and I'm not going to play all of this. I'm going to play some of this. I'm going to try to play some of this. I'm going to play the particularly troublesome parts.
Let us unite in prayer.
So see what he's doing here. He's using prayer, a universal thing amongst the religious people, amongst spiritual people like myself, that we find to connect us with the God, with the Logos, that should thereby transcend temporal matters. But see what's happening here. Hold on.
God, we gather under the beauty of your holiness and the holiness of your beauty.
Yep, God's here with us.
We seek your face, your smile,
Yep.
your warm embrace.
Yep.
We petition you once more in this celebration. We pray for divine favor upon our president, Joseph R. Biden.
He prays for divine favor upon our president, Joseph R. Biden. Lord, help me, please. How dare you root the Logos, root the spiritual down to the temporal, and cast favor upon someone in their political capacities, rather than in their walk with Christ, or in their walk with God, or in their walk with the spiritual, and the walk with their higher self. There are certain things that the Logos, the Christ, Jesus, can be called into. There are certain things he can be called into justly, but God is not a Republican or a Democrat. God is transcendent. God is universal. And yet, you hear this stuff, and the condition of this inauguration is unity, and people think, because the condition is unity, it's all good. Guys, we gotta be careful. I'll end the video with this. Be careful about what you hear, and do not, and I mean do not, simply accept a proposition because it sounds good. Use that divine rationality embedded into your DNA, embedded into your natural being as a human being, and project that onto the world, and use that to discern these principles, as the ancient texts say, discern the spirits, because that is the only way you will find yourself in a place of epistemic righteousness, and that is just the truth. Think on it. I love all of you. If you want to support my work, please donate to my PayPal, officialcwatson@gmail.com. In other words, my friends, thank you, I love you, and please stay pensive. Bye-bye. Hey guys, if you enjoy this message, please be sure to support my channel through PayPal. My PayPal is @officialcwatson, as you see on the screen. Any amount helps. Thank you so much, and stay pensive.